What's up, you guys? This is Zay Brooks, and this is episode 42 of a show I do not know the title to yet. Today, what I want to talk about is comparison. I know that people say comparison is the thief of joy, right? But I want to extrapolate on that even more. Um, I'd like to add that comparison makes the entire journey less enjoyable no matter the outcome. Um, People take these big leaps of faith, or they try something new, or they want to lose weight or become a lawyer, right? We can make a million things that people strive for on a daily basis. Comparison, no matter what happens, whether you're the most successful lawyer or you never become the businessman or never lose the weight that you want to have, comparison throughout the entire journey becomes less enjoyable for you. Um, and what dawned on me about talking about this is I play basketball, right? I play basketball ever since all I can remember. And basketball, like, it's reads and you stop and go and you're going left to right. And, the dynamic is a little bit different compared to other sports. In terms of my, like, imagining the highest version of myself, being in shape, basketball isn't as available to me as it was before, right? I was in college, I was more grounded in like one city, and it was a lot easier for me to find regular basketball to play in, right? And bear with me here, but I wanted to get into running. And I've been into running before. I just found it really boring and really monotonous and stressful even at times. And so I ended up contacting one of my homies who did cross country for college. Really good runner. Just an exemplary individual when it comes to having a personal brand while still practicing your passions. And he basically expressed to me that in running, comparison actually makes you more bored. It actually makes you not as into it mentally. But then it's almost like counterintuitive to where if you're comparing yourself and then you get bored, then it becomes no longer enjoyable, and it makes you feel more tired, and it makes you feel like you're uninterested in the avenue of it, as it were, because you might be comparing yourself to how other people run, right? I might be comparing to how my buddy runs, right, and how fast he runs. Or, a lot of the times with running, it's against your own time. So, there are other times when I had ran, when I was in shape, my diet was great a couple years ago while I was living in Texas, and, I was running a 5K under, I think it was like a 7:30 pace, which is just crazy, right? From what I know in terms of running, it's not like a Olympic level or even a collegiate level, but like a recreational level, running a 5K under a 7:30 minute, pace. And so now when I had run recently, because I had picked it back up again, I had found myself being a lot more bored, and I think it was because of my comparison not only to other runners, but more importantly to my past self. And it's like, you can take that same endeavor, like, oh, I talk about running, but it's like, okay, what about like learning Spanish or baking or doing content, right? You might have had some sort of success or some sort of journey, or you may have witnessed somebody else's journey, and that comparison to your efforts makes the journey less enjoyable no matter how well you do or how well you don't do. It's like it makes you uninterested. It makes you bored. It makes you self-sabotage. It makes you do so many things. Like, yes, comparison is the thief of joy. Like, I get that. But there are some things that you do, like running isn't necessarily like enjoyable per se. Maybe to some people it is, but like for me, it's like I look at it as a great form of cardio. I look at it as a chance to meditate, but it's not like it's this easy thing like, laying back on a lawn chair and sitting on the beach, right? It takes a level of accountability, self-discipline, effort, right? Consistency, post-work, pre-work, like making sure I'm taking care of my body. I'm not just going to get up and run miles. I'm going to end up hurting myself. So all that being said, comparison makes the journey not enjoyable. It's like joy, enjoyable. It's like the same thing, but it's like joy is an emotion that you can feel if a dog runs up to you and says hello, but it's like having an enjoyable experience is something that you envelop yourself in. And so my belief, on my anecdotal experience, I just try to give you thought-provoking concepts and things to resonate with in your own life. The comparisons that you make in your journey hinder you to where you can actually fall out of love with something simply because you're comparing to maybe other people, your past self, your future self, anything. You could find anything to compare yourself to. And I think that does a lot more damage than we think, and I feel like we find ourselves subconsciously comparing all the time, right? And I thought about this as I was walking over here to do this episode. Your journey is simply one of one. Yeah, this person might be trying to get to where you're trying to go, and they might be taking the same classes, or watching the same YouTube videos on how to learn, or going through the same trials and tribulations. But at the end of the day, your journey is one of one. Like whatever it is that you're trying to strive for, when you make it, your story will sound like nobody else's. So if you really think about it, how could we even begin to compare our journey to somebody else's? I think a lot of the times we look at the end of it all. Oh, this guy is super successful and he has 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Well, his journey, I'm assuming, must have been like this. He must have seen success at this time, or faced this trial and tribulation, or and then now I'm like, okay, well, if that's the assumption, then I'm going to build a belief on that assumption and then compare myself to the belief of the assumption, when really it's all hypothetical. And even if I were to go, let's say I talk to a guy named Jim, right? And Jim has 1 million subscribers and he explains to me his journey, blah, blah, blah. Still, no matter how much information I might know about Jim, if he's my best friend or if he's, my older brother or whoever, I still don't know every waking moment of what life was like for him, what his journey was in its entirety. So again, even if you have tons of information, you still can't even begin to compare because their journeys are entirely different. It may look the same, but I swear to you, like when I go to, Summer League Creator Cup, right? It's a place where all these creators meet to play a celebrity basketball game. Yeah, they may all sound the same if I talk to them for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, but it would take weeks, months, books on books to explain their journey and then cross-reference it to somebody else's and then triple cross-reference it into mine and my journey and where I want to go. To me, it just sounds like a whole lot of wasted effort. And a lot of people don't do that wasted effort. They just assume, build the beliefs on the assumption, and then simply compare. And then no matter what happens, let's say you do compare and blah, 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 and you end up making it, I swear to you, it won't be as sweet when you choose to make it without, or at least doing your best not to compare. Really realizing that the journey is your own. I can make the same example with this gym guy, right? If I somehow out of nowhere, right, get 1.5 million subscribers in 6 months, now he compares his journey to me, but what does that all mean? Like, there are different factors as to why. There's luck, there's concept, there's hard work, there's so many different factors. I could end up shaking hands with Mr. Beast and he looks at the camera and he says, follow Zay Brooks, and now I have 1.5. There's just so many different ways a journey can come into play. So now, am I not to compare myself to him because the results matter? Are we just so results oriented? I got a new tattoo on my leg and I'm talking to the artist, and a really good friend of mine. And he's like, man, I don't know what's up with these kids nowadays. They never draw, they never, take those steps to become the best tattoo artist that they can be. They just want a tattoo. And I commented and I said, yeah, it seems like they're just looking at it like a hustle and not an art anymore. And he was like, yeah, I could see that. And I was like, with my dad, my dad's a barber. I'm like, I can see that same thing as well. My dad's saying, yeah, a lot of these kids, they don't really know how to take those steps to be, make themselves the best versions of themselves as barbers. Their journey is just seeing it in the results oriented. At what point can I make X amount of money from cutting hair? And, the point I make to that is, I think we've gotten too worried about the results, and it ends up hindering our ability to be prepared for anything that's set in front of us in terms of opportunities, and in just our journey, and this is adding on to my idea about, what I want to talk about today. It's the way that you can walk in your journey is truly dictated by what you feel is your intrinsic motivation. Like, what do you feel? How do you feel about who it is that you want to be? Is it all based in results? Because if it is based in the results, right, you're the tattoo artist, you're the barber that's thinking, oh, how can I make this amount of money? Then when you do other things, or even just being a barber or a tattoo artist to stay on topic, you end up comparing yourself to somebody else who's a barber or a tattoo artist, and they make X amount of money from the assumptions that you make from their Instagram. You don't even know them from a can of paint. You're just assuming that they make this much money, or they tell you on Instagram through a reel, and now you just instantly believe them. Now you compare and think, okay, how can I get my results to their level? So you don't think about the time and attention and quality and the artistic level of just the time that it took, honestly, to get there. And so because of that, and you're so results oriented, you create assumptions on how they got there. You compare your journey, and no matter what happens, if you become that successful tattoo artist or that barber or that content creator, the journey becomes less enjoyable in its entirety. And that's the main point I want to make with you guys. And I see it with myself all the time. I try to do my best, that I catch myself. It takes that level of self-reflection I talk about all the time, trying to find times with yourself to allow yourself, your subconscious mind, to be able to speak to you and not just move so impulsively in your life, going through the motions. In those moments of silence, I try to allow myself to see where I am comparing. Who am I comparing to? Why am I comparing to them? What does that even matter? If I truly believe, right, if I have a chief definite aim, burning desire, and a wavering faith, and I feel the physical equivalent is inevitable, right? My chief definite aim is getting paid to be me. Why would I ever sit here and compare myself to somebody else's journey? I have no idea what it is that they go through, no matter how close or far away they are to me in proximity. I couldn't begin to imagine what it is that they go through, the things that they've done, the person that they are. I have no idea. So comparison a lot of times is based in assumptions. And unfortunately, assumptions hold zero weight. In the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, it talks about that. To never make assumptions. 99% of your comparisons are based on assumptions. And even worse, you can, like I said it before, you place your belief on that said assumption, which could be extremely hypothetical in nature. You know what I say, when I played basketball, right, and I was in college, I remember I was talking to my dad and I was like, yeah, I want to go to the NBA. That's something that I'm really interested in. Yeah, I'm at, Chico State, not one of the biggest schools, but I think I can make it. Then I start comparing myself to this other individual and this other NBA player who, this guy went to Duke, Tyus Jones, for example, I'm thinking in my head. And I used to watch his highlight tape and I'd say, oh, well, my journey compared to his, he had this journey in the junior year and then he made it. So I must, but at a certain point, I had realized God has a plan for everybody, right? And we're talking about my dream here of ever since I was in the third grade, I wanted to be a professional basketball player, right? And I was like, man, no matter what happens, I'm gonna get there. Blah, blah, blah. This is my dream. And I realized that in my journey for a couple of months, when I was playing basketball, I would take it out on my teammates. I'd take it out on myself, that I thought my journey wasn't as valuable. That this basketball player, Tyus Jones, for example, was a better person than me, that his journey was far more important than me, that, his dream, he's living my dream, so therefore he must be a better version of me, and it took a long time for me to snap out of that. It took me a couple months to realize that everybody's journey is completely different, right? And if I were to look at somebody else's journey like Tyus Jones, I would look at it for inspiration. Comparison and inspiration are two completely different things. Inspiration, right? Like some of my best friends, I was just on the phone today with Corey Funk. He's a very big YouTuber. I lived with him for a couple of years in Texas, and we had talked on the phone for like an hour. And, in his journey and who he is as a content creator and, where he's at in his life and who he wants to be and his vision and his mindset, right? Like, I have nothing but appreciation and inspiration for who he is and how far he's come and what I want to learn from somebody like him, right? But on the flip side, we could easily, as we do sometimes, especially with people that are very close to us, like I said, Corey was my roommate for a couple of years, I could look at his scenario and be like, well, he did it in this amount of time, so that means that I should probably be able to do it in this amount of time, because if I don't, then that means I have no way of succeeding because he did it here, so it must mean that in the same time frame, I'd have to reach this amount of subscribers, right? So then if I do that, then I can probably work with this brand and this company because, it's like I know what he went through. I've been around him, and, I want to compare and have a belief on that comparison, on that assumption. So, should I really do this content stuff that I'm doing? Should I really be an entrepreneur? Is this what's meant for me? Or is Corey really my friend? Is he somebody that I really can trust? Like, he's made it that big and he hasn't pulled me up. I'm so close to this guy. He should have pulled me up into fame and fortune as well in content. Like, you see how quickly the comparison, even if you don't do it all in one go, like I just did, my rant, no matter what happens in your journey, that comparison, those assumptions, those beliefs that you make can negatively influence your journey no matter how successful you are. No matter where I go, right, in my content creation, I could be one of the biggest content creators in the world, right? No matter what happens, those subconscious thoughts about the comparison doesn't make my journey enjoyable. And so now you ask me, Zay, what does this all matter? I either make it or I don't. So what's the whole point? Doesn't that mean that like I still made it though, even if I'm comparing? I guess that's true. You might have a point. But what I want to say in counter to that is life, in my opinion, is about receiving the gifts that God has given us to exude them to the world, right? And ultimately glorify his name. And if you want to look at it from, a perspective even outside of God, it's how to make this world a better place, how to provide value in other people's lives, right? How to simply make your existence on earth more fun, more valuable for other people to ultimately serve others, right? If I'm giving and this guy's giving and this guy's giving, why would I compare my giving to the next person? Like, what does that do? What does my giving do? Oh, shit. My chair just broke. No way. No shot. The chair just ripped in half. Yo, that's crazy. I'm going to finish it while sitting down. I don't want to have any stops. So, bro, that was wild. I got to show you guys. I know I'm supposed to be talking about certain stuff, but look, it literally ripped in half. That is comedy. Well, got to order a new one on Amazon. Dude, that's awesome. Okay, so I don't even know what I was talking about. Oh yeah, how to serve other people. And there's no real genuine serving or glorifying your gifts that God has given you if I'm comparing my gifts to somebody else's gifts, comparing my journey to somebody else's journey. There's no full circle revelation in that. There's no selflessness in that. It seems like it's always tied back to the individual. Like, oh, I'm comparing myself to them, so it's all about me. And why is my journey not as the same as theirs? But we're both giving, right? And that's good. Like, I'm a giver, but I'm always comparing. See, I think there's no real inner peace when you choose to compare what somebody else has going on, no matter how big you are, right? You could have a $10 million net worth, but if you keep comparing to the $100 million guy, now you're hungry for more money. Now you're hungry for stretching yourself even thinner. But little do you know, this $100 million guy barely gets to spend time with his kids, spent up all the time, pent up in the business, and now you're in a position where you make 10 million net worth, and you get to be in your kids' lives and pick them up from school and drop them off at school, and you get to be a great husband, but your comparison ends up making the journey less enjoyable for you, so you make the assumption and the belief on the assumption on the hypothetical that you want to be this guy simply because he is who he is, but you don't know his journey, and it could be completely different from yours. And that's the funny thing about God is God works with you on your manifestations. So if that's what it is that you want, a lot of the times God shows you to be like, here, this is what you asked for, but is this what's meant for you? I don't know. That's for you to decide. We all have the same ability to dictate and have discernment about the way we choose to have our life go, especially with the people in it and the things that we do and the time that we spend thinking about certain things, or just the way we choose to have a certain lifestyle, right? Obviously, some things are out of our control and it's ultimately in God's will. Yeah, I get that. But what I'm trying to say is the comparison can completely change and alter your reality, your journey, your identity. It's scary how deep that can really get. So, and now you say, okay, Zay, well, what's next? How do I go about not comparing? Well, I think a lot of the times it ends up happening subconsciously. So it's very hard for me in a lot of these episodes. It's hard for me to explain to you things if you are just choosing to listen to what I have to say and then just going on about your day and choosing not to reflect or give time for inner work, or maybe write things down and figure out where it is that you feel like you're proud of yourself, and then other things that you need to improve on. Like, this is a place for you to use me as a reference point for what it is that you need to work on in your life. And maybe your reference point is that there is no reference point, and there's a lot of things going on in your life that you're doing very well. And, you really have no complaints. But I think the bigger question is, the search and truth for knowledge is something that makes you a better person, because always learning and gaining perspective about the truth or the way somebody lives their life or whatever, I think it ultimately makes you a better person by either accepting the information that's given to you and then using that as a reference point to changing your life, or looking at it as, wow, that was something that I could actually, gain perspective of. I'm glad for, whatever that is, that book sharing me the experience or the podcast sharing me the experience. I don't know if that's something that I can use and resonate with in my own life, but nonetheless, I'm appreciative, because we never know if there's an opportunity where something like that may come up. And, I might need to listen to something like that, or that might be made for me, but just not right now. Regardless, right? That search for truth and for knowledge, I think it is so powerful. So that's the first thing I would say when you ask me, okay, how do I figure out ways to not compare to other people to make my journey more enjoyable? I think it's just having more so of a present mind state and catching yourself, like if you meet, let's say you want to be, I'll just make it easy for me. I want to be a content creator. So when I meet another content creator that has 1.5 million subscribers or makes, I'm just thinking, Jesser, for example, this basketball YouTuber, he makes, I don't know, crazy amounts of money. I don't even remember the number he said, and if I did, I probably wouldn't want to tell you, but a good amount of money, right? I remember I was talking to him at an NBA event, And in my head, it's like, okay, there is two directions. One, you can truly be inspired by him saying that that is possible in somebody that's trying to do the same thing that he's doing, and ask him questions and, create some sort of, environment where I'm able to genuinely and authentically ask him what it took to get there, things that I may need to know, things you would have wished, right when you started, shortcuts, But on the flip side, you can take that moment when it's right in front of you and be like, I want to compare myself. I'm self-sabotage. Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore because he already made it and he's so successful, blah, blah, blah. I think, being open to opportunities to allow yourself to be in the present moment and not compare. It's like God will end up showing you that test. I really can't begin to explain to you. I think you just need to be more open and ready, for opportunities like that, to catch yourself, to not compare to other people. I think that's just the easiest way to put it. Just be open-minded, like be more present, like stop trying to worry about things that happened in the future or in the past. And when you're in the present a lot more often, you see things and you're like, whoa, that's an opportunity for me to practice patience. This is an opportunity for me to practice not comparing. This is an opportunity for me to reflect on what had just happened. Or I feel anger rising in me as an emotion. What do I need to do? Does something need to change about who I am? Or maybe I'm allowing them to be able to control my energy. Like, that's probably the biggest thing I can give you, is giving yourself time and the ability to be in the present moment, to recognize certain things about yourself. At the end of the day, we are the vessel. We are the soul inside the vessel that is practicing a human experience. So being able to take that step back and be in the present moment and see where things are, you can begin to see how your vessel reacts to certain phenomenological instances of people talking to you, or them, you see somebody on the internet explaining their story, or somebody showing their cars and their big house and saying they got it from content creation. Like, being more present allows you to recognize where it is you need to improve. And right now I'm simply talking about improving in not comparing, because those assumptions make your journey less enjoyable, no matter how successful or not successful you are. Comparison does nothing for you. Inspiration does a lot for you. Curiosity does a lot for you. But you have to ask yourself your intentionality. No one's going to be able to help you in your intentionality of your curiosity, of whatever it is that you feel, if you want to compare yourself or be inspired by this other individual or other instance or whatever it is, wherever you feel that level of comparison. So comparison is it is the thief of joy. You already understand that. But the enjoyment is something that you envelop yourself in and experience in. So if I'm walking around in my life as a doctor, a lawyer, a content creator, a business owner, my enjoyment of the journey can be self-sabotaged simply by my comparison to other people. No matter if I have the biggest business, if I have Amazon squared, or if I'm just starting out, or if I feel like I'm failing as a creator, or failing as a business owner, which never really should be a thing, because growth isn't linear. Like I said, a lot of people are results oriented. They think that growth kind of looks like this. I will tell you right now, when I first started making content, I reached 100,000 followers on TikTok the first year, and then it went down, and then I started making vlogs, had a little bit of traction, and then I went down, and then I started streaming and making a little bit of traction, and I went down. Now I do, trivia, and that's among other things. As I'm also a UGC creator, and I also do this show, right? So, growth is definitely not linear. So you can't spend time comparing, because everybody's journey is different. I don't know how else I can explain that to you. So I appreciate you guys for sitting through this, man. What I want to do really quick is a guided meditation. So if you can find somewhere on the ground, somewhere on your bed, say crisscross applesauce, whatever feels comfortable, only be a couple minutes. And what I want you to do is close your eyes, and we're going to take 3 deep breaths. So in and out. In and out. In and out. And what I want you to do is simply give yourself time. I'm going to just give you 30 seconds to a minute to intentionally breathe and repeat the mantra, I am here now. If you need the sounds of what's going on currently in the forest that I'm in, whatever you need to be able to relax and breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth for the next 30 to 60 seconds, and intentionally breathe and choose to be right here and now. If you feel your mind drift, Let it go like a red car passing the highway and repeat the mantra to yourself, I am here now. Go ahead. In through your nose, out through your mouth. I am here now. Keep going, just a little longer. In through your nose, out through your mouth. There's nowhere else to be except right now. I have all the things I need to be whoever it is I want to become. Nobody can stop me except me. One more time. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. You feel your jaw unclench. Your shoulders relax. Your lower back untighten. Oh, it just feels so good. Just from intentional thought. Existing in the present moment. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. Okay, you can open your eyes now. Really quick, this made me think about comparison. I have this book that I'm reading right now. I'm reading a book a month for the rest of my life, or for as long as I possibly can. This is the book that I'm currently reading right now, The Millionaire Next Door. And literally, it talks about the surprising secrets of America's wealthy. The individual who lives next door to you as a millionaire, the life that they live, and how you can add the teachings into your own life, right? I paraphrase a little bit. And you ask yourself, what is my intentionality? Am I comparing myself to a millionaire? To be like, oh, well, they do this, so I should do this, and then this, all the assumptions. Or can I simply perceive the way somebody lives and gain inspiration from them? That's what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. Take your comparison and turn it into, how can I make this positively and figure out ways where, damn, that inspires me to go get it. I see my boy sign this deal with whoever or get 1 million views on this video. How can I change that into inspiration and motivate myself and still be happy for him? No envy, no jealousy, no self-sabotaging, no comparison. How can I just be inspired by that individual? That's what I want to get you guys to understand is life, the comparison of your journey compared to somebody else's. The comparison of your comparison. The comparison of your journey to somebody else's will influence yours no matter how successful or how much of a failure it is. No matter where you are in that journey. Your comparison to somebody else, yes, comparison is the thief of joy. But comparison makes the journey far less enjoyable no matter what the outcome is. I appreciate you guys, man. Life is truly, truly good. All right. I'll see you guys on the next one.